Close your eyes and picture this. You're walking along a narrow black river, the air thick like smoke, the sky churning with a dim red glow, and in the distance, the sound of something moving, just out of sight. Every ancient civilization, Egypt, India, the Maya, Sumer, separated by oceans, language, and centuries, described the same place. Not heaven, not some vague dreamscape, but a map, a detailed, structured world of darkness, rivers, gates, and judgment, as if they had all visited the same land of the dead. In ancient Egypt, this place was called the Duat, an underworld mapped out in their funerary texts, where the soul sails through 12 shadowy divisions, crossing rivers of fire, passing through monstrous guardians with the heads of serpents, lions, and crocodiles, answering riddles, reciting spells to avoid being devoured. The Duat is not random chaos. It's geography, mountains, lakes, even named landmarks, all leading to the Hall of Two Truths, where the heart is weighed against the feather of Maat, and the unworthy are fed to Amit, the soul eater. Across the world, in Hindu tradition, there is Naraka, not one hell, but many, layered like vast subterranean cities, each reserved for a different kind of sin. Rivers of boiling blood, lakes of pus, walls of iron so hot they burn the air around them. Torment here is precise, systematic, and yet disturbingly similar in structure to the Duat. Guarded gates, rivers, trials, punishments tailored to the soul's actions in life. In the Mayan underworld of Xibalba, the pattern repeats, a descent through trials overseen by death gods who take pleasure in trickery and pain, rivers filled with scorpions, blood, and bones, crossroads that force the soul to choose a path without guidance, often leading straight into traps. And in the oldest Sumerian myths, there is Kur, a vast, dusty wasteland where the dead are herded like cattle through 7 gates, stripped of everything they were, even their identity, before being allowed to wander in a place where no light shines and no hope remains. These are not vague metaphors. These are maps, each culture describing specific terrain, rivers, mountains, gates, guardians. And the disturbing part is how much they overlap. The Duat's lake of fire and Naraka's river of molten metal. The 7 gates of Kur and the layered trials of Xibalba. The judgment halls that exist in Egypt and India, but echo in the Maya's trials of the soul. How do cultures that never met, never traded, never even knew of each other, end up describing the same geography of the dead? Skeptics say it's just the human brain inventing order to chaos, that the mind facing the void of death will naturally imagine rivers and gates and trials because we fear the unknown. But there is another possibility, one whispered in the darker corners of occult thought, that when we dream, when we die, when we leave the body, we are not inventing these places, we are visiting them. That the Duat, Naraka, Xibalba, and Kur are not 4 separate hells, but 4 entrances to the same realm, seen through the eyes of different cultures. Think about that. When your heart stops, you may not be greeted by angels or a tunnel of light. You may find yourself on the shores of that black river, the air heavy, the sky bleeding red, and you'll know, deep down, that every story you've ever heard about the afterlife wasn't just myth, it was a warning. And the map has been in front of us the whole time. We just didn't want to believe where it led. But if these maps are real, then they can be studied. And when you start connecting the lines, something deeply unsettling begins to emerge. These routes are not random. In every single culture, there is always a path, a fixed journey the soul is forced to take, as if it's being herded like cattle. In the Duat, it's the solar bark, the boat that carries the dead along a narrow black river, each gate sealed behind you the moment you pass. In Naraka, the soul is dragged from one level of hell to the next by the messengers of Yama, their grip cold and inescapable. In Xibalba, you are pushed through chamber after chamber, each more cruel than the last, until your will is gone. And in Kur, the gates are counted. 1, 2, all the way to 7, each stripping away a part of who you are until there is nothing left but dust. This isn't chaos. This isn't chance. It feels designed. Which leaves a question that should make your stomach turn. Who built the afterlife, and why does it feel like a prison? The more you compare the oldest records, Egypt's pyramid texts, the Rig Veda's verses, the Popol Vuh, the Sumerian tablets, the stranger it gets. The rivers always take the same forms, either circling the underworld like a moat or slicing straight through it like a scar. The gates are never fewer than 7. The judges are always 3 or multiples of 3. And beyond the last gate, there is always a ruler. Osiris, Yama, the lords of Xibalba, Ereshkigal, and none of them feel like saviors. They feel like wardens. Which brings us to the oldest and most dangerous theory, that the afterlife is not a natural realm at all. It's a construct, a place built to contain the dead, to keep them from leaving, and maybe even to feed on them. In the Duat, unworthy souls are swallowed whole by Amit. In Naraka, sins are burned away in ways that feel less like purification and more like extraction. In Xibalba, survivors are transformed into something other before they're allowed to leave. And in Kur, Ereshkigal takes her tax, not in gold, but in the essence of the dead themselves. If this is true, then every human who has ever died has passed through the same system, and that system has been running longer than history itself. And here's the most chilling part. These maps weren't meant for everyone. They were hidden, carved into tomb walls no living person could see, sealed inside scrolls given only to initiates, guarded by priests who swore oaths of silence. You don't hide a map unless you're hiding a way out. And if there is a way out, that means the prison is real. Which means one day you will walk those same paths, stand before those same gates, and meet the one who built them. And when you do, you'll understand why every ancient culture feared the same hell. And yet, if you search deep enough, past the official myths, past the religious comfort stories, you find something far more dangerous. Whispers of those who tried to escape, hidden in the margins of ancient scrolls, scratched into the walls of forgotten temples. There are accounts not of submission, but of rebellion. In Egypt, there is a forbidden spell from the Book of the Dead, not meant for priests or nobles, a spell that claims to walk sideways through the Duat, bypassing the gates entirely. In the Vedic traditions, there are obscure mantras never recited aloud, said to blind the messengers of Yama so they cannot drag you down. The Maya told of travelers who reached Xibalba, but instead of playing the games set by the lords, they moved in complete silence, passing unseen until they reached the end. And in Sumer, a broken tablet speaks of a door between the gates, a path that was not guarded. But every single one of these escape stories ends the same way. Failure. Some tell of souls who tried and were caught, punished not just with torment, but erased entirely, their names removed from every record. Others hint that escape was possible, but that those who succeeded were never seen again by gods or men. And that may be the most terrifying part, because if they did escape, where did they go? Was there freedom, or something worse than the prison itself? The clues suggest that whatever runs this machine we call the afterlife does not tolerate resistance. The punishments for trying are far more creative and far more permanent. In every account, the rulers of these realms, Osiris, Yama, the lords of Xibalba, Ereshkigal, react not with pity, but with fury. They are not impartial judges. They are jailers protecting their domain. And maybe they are protecting something else as well. Some occult traditions speak of a second death, a complete annihilation of the soul, reserved only for those who refuse the system. It's said that when this happens, there is no darkness, no light, no dream, just nothing. Maybe that's why these maps were hidden, not to guide us, but to tempt us into trying. And maybe that temptation is part of the trap. Because if you think you found a way out, you will run straight into the one who built the walls. And then you'll learn the final truth about why every ancient civilization drew the same map. And you may wish you had never seen it. But there's one more detail the myths never tell you directly. The maps are incomplete. Every version we've ever found, from the painted tomb walls of Egypt to the stone glyphs of the Maya, is missing something. Corners of papyrus burned away, stone slabs deliberately chipped, entire verses in holy books left blank, marked only with the words, "not to be spoken." This isn't damage from time. It's erasure. Deliberate. Someone in every culture wanted the final section of the map gone. And when you overlay the surviving fragments from all four civilizations, Duat, Naraka, Xibalba, and Kur, there is a gap. An unmarked region, as if a whole section of the afterlife has been blacked out. The strange part? That gap always sits beyond the final ruler, beyond Osiris, beyond Yama, beyond the lords of Xibalba, beyond Ereshkigal. Meaning, the so-called end of the afterlife may not be the end at all. Some occult scholars call this hidden place the Unlit Crossing, a realm where the maps fail, the rivers stop, and the laws that bind the dead simply vanish. Those who claim to have glimpsed it in visions, near-death experiences, trance states, describe it the same way. A horizonless void, silent, without form, and yet they all speak of the feeling of being watched, not by the rulers we know, by something older. This is where the theories fracture. Some say the Unlit Crossing is true freedom, a place untouched by the system. Others insist it's the original heart of the prison, where the architect itself dwells, hidden from its wardens and judges. And here's the part that keeps occult researchers awake at night. In a handful of cases, people who claimed to see this place came back changed. No fear of death, no emotional connection to the living, and a strange compulsion to draw maps over and over. Maps that always end in the same black void. Maybe the ancients weren't warning us about hell at all. Maybe they were warning us about what lies beyond it. And maybe the missing part of the map isn't missing at all. Maybe it was hidden so no one could ever find the way there, because if they did, they might never come back. Or worse, they might bring something with them. There is one story that almost no one talks about. A case buried so deep in historical archives that it should have been forgotten. But it hasn't been. It comes from 1921 in a small hospital in Calcutta. The patient was a scholar named Arjun, known for his work comparing Vedic texts to Mesopotamian myths. He was declared clinically dead for 7 full minutes after a sudden cardiac arrest. No pulse, no breath, no brain activity. When he was revived, his first words were, "I saw the missing road." He refused to explain at first, but weeks later, in a feverish state, he began covering the walls of his room with symbols and diagrams. Nurses described them as looking like a map, but not of any place on Earth. One section of his drawings, always the same, was nothing but a vast empty space, shaded in black, with an inscription in Sanskrit that translated to "the place without return." Arjun claimed he had been guided past the known gates, past Yama himself, by something that did not speak, but pulled him forward. He said the rivers stopped flowing, the ground turned to glass, and the sky vanished. And in that horizonless void, he felt the presence of an intelligence so ancient it did not even recognize humanity as real. Days later, Arjun burned every map he had drawn, except for one. He sealed it in a metal box and gave it to his assistant with a single instruction. "When I die for the last time, throw this into the Ganges." He died less than a month later. The box was found in 1987, washed up on the banks after a flood. The map inside was intact, perfectly dry, and on it there were no rivers, no gates, no judges, just a single arrow pointing into the black void, with one phrase written in 4 ancient scripts: "It is still waiting." No one knows what Arjun saw. Some say it was madness. Some say he truly reached the Unlit Crossing. But here's what chills me most. In the decades since, others have drawn the same map. People who have never heard of Arjun Das, who have nothing in common except one thing. They've all been clinically dead and brought back. If they are right, then when we die, we don't just face the prison. We face whatever built it. And maybe it's still waiting for us all.